I cannot lie, diving back into Kingdom Come Deliverance in 2026 has certainly been an experience. This is a game that has lived in my orbit for many years now. It's always one of those RPGs that everyone swears by, that constantly gets brought up as a classic, but somehow it's just sat untouched in my backlog for so long. Honestly, a big part of that came down to one thing though, the console performance. After spending nearly 100 hours now with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the idea of going back to a locked 30 FPS experience just never felt that appealing. That's why when PlayOn reached out to me about sponsoring this video and offering early access to this next generation upgrade, I really couldn't say no.
Is that so?
Not only did it give me the perfect excuse to finally commit to the game, but it also let me experience it in what is now objectively the best possible way. This isn't just a here's what's new sort of video, this is me finally sitting down with Kingdom Come Deliverance properly and figuring out whether this upgrade actually changes the way the game really feels to play. So first off, a massive thank you to PlayOn for sponsoring the video and trusting me with this one. As always, I will be giving away a copy of the game, so do let me know in the comments what you think about this upgrade. But with that, let's talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance on the Xbox Series consoles and whether this next gen version is worth your time.
You really know how to sweet talk a girl, don't you?
Now, the most important thing to clarify straight away is what this update actually is and what it isn't. This is not a remake, and it's certainly not a remaster. You're not getting redesigned systems or rewritten content. Instead, it's a substantial enhancement designed to modernize the original experience while staying faithful to what the game always was. And honestly, that feels like a right approach here, especially considering how well Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 performed and how much attention the series is getting right now in 2026. From a technical standpoint, the update targets 4K resolution on the Xbox Series X and I believe about 1440p on the Series S, with added FSR upscaling and then improved anti-aliasing to really clean up those images. But the real game changer for me though was the inclusion of high resolution textures. This was one of the original game's weakest points, where certain environments and character models would certainly look noticeably blurry. This is going to be no longer the case here, as textures are way sharper, materials do read better as well, and visually the game actually now sits much closer to the standard set by the sequel, but do be aware those HD textures are only available on the Xbox Series X. The Series S doesn't have the toggle like the higher end system, so I kind of assume this is a trade-off due to the lower spec of that small but capable console. I also found it gives you a choice between a rock solid FPS without HD textures or a slight disparage in its frame rate if you do want that lovely quality, but more on that momentarily. And yes, if you want to watch Henry get absolutely wasted with a priest and then stumble through town afterward on his sexcapades, you can certainly do that now in some very crisp and modern clarity. For me though, the visuals alone were never my main issue with the original console version. The performance really was my main gripe, and this is where the upgrade truly earns its place today. Both the Xbox Series X and S consoles now run Kingdom Come Deliverance at up to 60 frames per second. From my testing, it's really impressive with just how much better this feels, and that jump from 30 to 60 completely transforms how this game feels. Stuff like movement is way smoother, combat is way more responsive, and suddenly the entire experience feels like it belongs on the current generation hardware.
Thank you, sir.
I will say it's not going to be locked at 60 FPS all the time, as I did mention, but that's only if you enable the HD textures on the Series X. I do suspect that's due to all the heavy lifting being done by the upgraded texture quality and just how dense the environment is 99% of the time. I did try the frame rate with those textures turned off on the Series X, and it does run like absolute butter. The Series S also holds up very well with its own version, obviously without those textures as well. It maybe has a dropped frame here and there, but overall it's a really solid experience. To put this into perspective, I actually went back and tested the Xbox One version again by grabbing a physical copy of the game just to kind of remind myself what it was like. And yeah, that frame pacing is pretty rough from time to time. Stutters are pretty common across the board, especially in larger cities like Ratai, and after playing the upgraded version, it's genuinely hard to go back to this one. This isn't me being harsher on that older release at all, it's just a reminder of how our expectations have certainly shifted, and the series console version finally meets my high standards. That extra performance also impacts something that people really don't talk about enough, and that's the responsiveness of the entire game as a whole. As you may know, Kingdom Come Deliverance is a very sort of slow and methodical game by its design, especially in its combat departments. Henry isn't a chosen one, he is a blacksmith's son who starts out barely capable of surviving a single sword fight, and when timing matters this much, that smoother frame rate makes a real difference. Parries feel way more reliable, stuff like master strikes become way more noticeable, and movement feels more deliberate, and learning that combat system makes it far less frustrating. Make no mistake though, this is a game that wants you to learn through and through. Kingdom Come Deliverance might just be the ultimate slow burn RPG. You really do start out as intimidating as SpongeBob when he's just trying to lift some weights, but through training, repetition, and actual effort and going off on these little different quests, you grow into something far more formidable. That progression isn't just going to be statistical either, it's actually something you can feel as a player. If you bounced off this game within the first few hours, I honestly feel like that's quitting games like The Witcher 3 before leaving White Orchard, or not playing Clair Obscur past the point of the first Gamage. The game is going to be intentionally awkward off the start, because the payoff only works if you stick with it, and the game is so rewarding the more hours that you start putting into it.
Some fun at last.
I will say that the combat system itself is one of the most realistic first-person melee systems ever put into an RPG that I've experienced. It's not about flailing wildly, it really is about spacing, reading your opponent and their positioning, the different counterattacks coming up you, and then understanding when you're outmatched. If The Witcher 3 combat is checkers, then it's quite simple to say that Kingdom Come is certainly chess. Just like real life, being outnumbered is usually a death sentence, and you'll have to learn to run away from time to time.
Where is everyone? Quick!
Learning when to fight, when to sneak, and when to run is part of that overall experience, and when it does click, it feels incredibly satisfying, and there's no other game on the market like it. Beyond the combat though, the world itself is where Kingdom Come Deliverance truly shines to me. There's an obsessive level of detail here from Warhorse Studios, and I was always surprised when just walking around this massive world and stumbling across the unexpected. Fireflies flicker at night, dogs stop to drink from puddles, light filters through cracks in wooden buildings, and then just seeing a massive fortification in the distance can be quite intimidating. Of course, you will stumble across some very strange discoveries and subtle Easter eggs, which are great to see, but the highlight for me were the quiet moments, which makes you just stop and soak it all in. It's one of the most atmospheric open world games ever played, and after playing both games, it's quite simple to state that Warhorse are really masters of their craft. I mean, even the dialogue and voice acting from Tom McKay is utterly flawless yet again, and it's actually quite nice not hearing that he's hungry as much as the sequel.
I understand. Good.
Now, it wouldn't be honest for me to say that a game is flawless though. It can still be buggy from time to time, and that's either part of the charm or a real deal breaker depending on your tolerance to these sort of things. What really carries the game though is throughout its narrative. It's a very wordy one for sure, and you will come across many moments where you'll be listening to conversations for 10 plus minutes, but it is backed by strong writing and great performances as I mentioned. Henry will grow on you in a very natural way, and the smaller sort of human-like moments like the absurdity and awkwardness and the unexpected humour are what make the story so memorable. I cannot understate that Henry is so perfectly written, and he kind of feels like the usual John, Dick or Harry you'd see down your local pub at night, but then thrust into some unimaginable horrors. Overall, you may be asking me though, Fletch, who is this upgrade actually for? Well, it's pretty simple for me to answer that, and it's for players who always meant to go back to it but never did. It's for the people who also tried the original and bounced off it early, and it's also for those newcomers who want the best possible way to experience this world for the very first time. The added language support options, including Brazilian Portuguese, Turkish and Japanese, also opens up the doors for many of you players who were previously locked out of the original experience entirely, and after seeing the many complaints about this across Twitter and other social sites, I'm so glad that many of you can now finally experience it. It is worth noting though that the update will be launching as of today, the 13th of February, for both the Xbox Series X and S, PS5 and PC, and is completely free for existing owners, and is also included with Xbox Game Pass. PC players will also get a separate patch from what I've seen on both Steam and the Epic Game Store, and your save game data will also carry over so you won't lose any progress. It's worth noting that happens on every single console and PC as well. If you somehow don't own the game yet, from the ridiculous sales we've been seeing, there are brand new digital editions available on different storefronts as of today, with a physical release actually coming later this year, and I for one am definitely grabbing that one day one to sit alongside my Xbox One version.
I'm glad you came.
The ultimate question though is it worth going back to Kingdom Come Deliverance before jumping into its brand new sequel? Now that it's had this update, I cannot recommend it enough, and this is one of those RPGs you need to experience above most on the market, as it's utterly remarkable and a total masterpiece. Not only does the original hit harder now thanks to this upgrade, but it also gives you narrative context that pays off in a very big way later on when playing the second entry. This is still one of the best medieval RPGs ever made, and now finally it feels like the version console players were always meant to have. That's just my take though after finally giving it the time it deserved, but I am curious, if you had to pitch Kingdom Come Deliverance to someone who's never played it before, how would you go about doing it in one sentence? Drop it in the comments below.
Now that's a good question.
Make sure to hit that like button as well if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to check out some more amazing Xbox content, make sure to check out the video on screen now.